What's up, Trail Network Nation? Rachel here. This week's episode, Leah and I talk about some happenings in our lives, my graduation from a 10-year-long MD PhD program, my move to Salt Lake City, Utah, which is where Leah lives, and just rehashing some takeaways from the Western States training camp. Hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey friends, it's Rachel.
And it's Leah.
Leah, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. Just another day in the life. But yeah, Rachel, I think I'm more interested in what's going on in your life the last few days. If I remember correctly, you graduated with your MD PhD just this past weekend in Portland. You've been putting in insane Western States training, and you moved to Salt Lake City today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give us the rundown on what's new with you.
Yeah, it's been a lot. I'm really like everything you said is true. And I'm really just trying to take everything in and enjoy every moment. Yeah, so I graduated. So today we're talking on Tuesday afternoon, and I think this will come out on Thursday. So yeah, graduated on Sunday. Also had a going away party over the weekend, which was super fun. My whole family was in town. And then on Monday, we got all packed up, and my mom, Lewis, and our dog Teddy and I all started driving out to Salt Lake City and spent the night in Baker City at a Motel 6. And it was kind of sketchy. Um, we really wanted Arby's for dinner, but it wasn't open. So then I went to Taco Bell, but we were driving our van and the van was too tall to go through the drive-through and the inside was closed. So I walked through the drive-through, which is something I've always wanted to do, and it lived up to the hype. It was so fun.
I need to remember that. I would have, gosh, that's crazy. I wouldn't have imagined your van wouldn't be able to make it through the drive-through.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I was about to be really disappointed, but fortunately they were still able to serve me.
Oh,
But yeah, it's been really fun. I feel like driving into Salt Lake City, it felt like I was a freshman in college again, like driving into the dorms, my mom dropping me off, like just so many opportunities and new changes. And yeah, I'm really excited.
oh, it's got to be such a big change though, because I feel like when I first learned about Rachel Drake years ago, like I feel like Portland defined you. Portland defined you and Tyler. Like that's got to be a big step because I feel like for the last decade of your life, at least, you've
Mhm.
been and thriving in Portland. So how does that change of scenery feel for you?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think that's very true that we've really laid down roots and are very deeply integrated in the community there. But I feel like it was almost the kind of thing where we felt so comfortable in Portland. Like we had all our running routes figured out. We had family there, friends there. I knew everyone at the hospital. And it just felt like time for a change. And fortunately, in Salt Lake City, we also have a community, and I'm really excited to dive more into that. I'm not joking when I say that a big part of the reason I wanted to go to the University of Utah is that so I could deepen my friendship with you, Leah.
Oh,
Here
that's
we
the best.
go.
Well, I needed one more buddy to just run at the most odd hours of the day with, and I've been counting down the minutes until you got here for that reason too.
I can't wait. Did you know that we're actually going for a run together when we get off this call? Did Mike tell you?
I was just conducting I was on a panel of interviewers, for my day job just before this call. I was on 2 in a row, and I just was getting text messages, and you're like, "Wait, Mike, Leah and I have to record a podcast at, 5 o'clock." And he's like, "Oh, news to me." And I was like, "Oh, shoot, I forgot to tell him that part of my day."
I love that I got to be the one to tell Mike. Now we're getting very integrated in each other's lives.
It's the best. I know I was driving home from work today, and I was like, "Maybe Rachel will be at my house when I get there." Just open door policy already.
Can't no, I now that I have a place here, I would like to spread the word that I want that open door policy. I'm really like looking forward to some drop-ins from friends.
Seriously, guys, if you're ever in Salt Lake City or thinking about coming to Salt Lake City, hit us up.
Yes.
I've got a great cat. Rachel's got a great dog. We're
They
super
don't
open to
they
visitors.
probably don't go great together. We haven't tested it out yet.
They probably
Your
don't.
your cat and my kid also don't go great together.
It'll
We
they'll
have
they'll
that.
learn to love each other.
Yeah, yeah. What else is new with you?
Oh, gosh, life's just been coming at me really fast lately. For whatever reason, I was reflecting on this with Mike in the last couple weeks. Um, for work, every April to June every year, which at least for the last 3 years now, which is conveniently timed with my Western States peak build. My work peak build also happens to peak at the same time. So it's been a really hectic last few weeks, but just trying to take it as it comes. Been traveling to Billings, Montana, Idaho Falls, got a flat tire in there somewhere. I was
Was
in
was that the
Boise a few weeks
tumbleweed
ago.
flat
Oh,
tire?
yeah, I ran over a tumbleweed, and guys, I don't know if you've ever experienced tumbleweeds, but we've got a lot of them in Utah. My yard is filled with them right now from like of ferocious winter winds that I'm still working to clean out. But I ran over a tumbleweed on the drive, and they are way tougher than they look, and I punctured my tire, and it was a really chaotic 24 hours for me, but character building.
It's so terrible, but it's also so hilarious that a tumbleweed could do that because they
It's
look
just
kind of fluffy.
they look so fluffy, and I feel like it's Utah and Idaho, and that just makes so much sense when you think about driving between the 2 states. It's just like, of course you're going to encounter a tumbleweed and get a flat tire.
Oh my gosh. I
But
feel
yeah,
like yeah. We should also talk about our Western States training camp,
a good
'cause
idea.
we did just spend some quality time together in Michigan Bluff and surrounding area, and that was a blast.
It was so much fun. Yeah, I mean, so we were supposed to record this podcast at training camp with Rachel and I think it just speaks to the level of enjoyment that we were having that weekend and the amount of things we had going on, and just we were lifing, and
Mhm.
we just decided to engage in like each other's presence and connect that way rather than hopping on the microphone and recording something. So I appreciate us prioritizing ourselves and our
Yeah.
experiences rather than doing that. But yeah, training camp was awesome. That was your first time. It was
Mhm.
my third time. And for those of you not familiar with the training camp, we get to do about 70 miles of the course of Western States over the course of 3 days. So the first day we go Robinson Flat to Forest Hill, then Forest Hill to the river, and then up to Driver's Flat. And then on the last day, we run from Green Gate to the finish. And everybody's invited. You can sign up on Ultra Sign Up. You don't need to be running Western States for it, but it does happen to attract a lot of the people who are running Western States. And for the last 3 years, I've felt like this weekend is just a great experience to get to hang out at a low key level with, especially like a lot of the female athletes will be competing against during Western States. It gives you an opportunity to really make meaningful connections out on the course, but also really get to know the other people that you might not know so well, or you might have heard their names by following racing throughout the year. And it was just so incredible. And Rachel and I, we got to run quite a bit together, and those were some special moments too.
Yeah. How did it compare this year to past years, and what were some of like your big takeaways from the weekend?
Yeah, good question. On the last day, I we were driving to Placer High, and I was in the car. It was me, Mike, Caleb Olson, and his wife Morgan Olson. And I was telling Caleb, I was like, "Hey, Caleb, you want to run easy with me today?" And he's like, "Leah, no one ever wants to run as easy as you want to run." And I will say,
I
I
do.
I know, but not many people do. So I think a takeaway from me the last couple years, and I feel like every year training camp's getting ever so slightly faster, at least on the women's side. Like maybe I just run my long runs inherently slow most of the time because that's just what I do. But I felt like this year was exceptionally speedy at training camp, and we can kind of like dive into each day a little bit. But
Mhm.
day one, you and I, me, you, and Emily Schmitz all ran that entirety together, and we had about 2 miles of snow after Robinson Flat. But then we really I felt like we embraced the elements, embraced the creeks, the flowers. Like I felt like
Mhm.
that was a truly very chill 50K day. And I liked what your Strava said when I read it after the fact. It said
What
like
did it
that was
say?
the easiest like 30
Ah,
miles 50K has ever felt. And
true.
I agree. It was so fun.
Mhm. I was surprised when we got done, and I was like I was not feeling so relieved to be in Forest Hill. Like any other time I've run that long of a training run or even a race, a 50K race, I've always been like, "Oh, thank goodness that's over. I'm tired, I'm achy." And I just felt like we had such a blast the whole day. And it's not as though we were just shuffling and going slow. It's just that we were truly enjoying ourselves. And yeah,
Mhm.
it was
Yeah, and
great.
I think I reflected on it too. I was like, I felt like when we were running well. And then but when we were taking
Mhm.
breaks, we were taking really great breaks. So we took a moment to go into the El Dorado Creek, and you did a nice little cannonball and I submerged myself. And then we took moments to like look at all the
That's so us.
flowers. I know.
Rachel with the cannonball, Leah with the submersion.
A gentle submersion. And then we were identifying plants. So we should chat about this. But we had a couple like poison oak experts along the trail with us who were pointing out every time we would encounter poison oak because it's historic this time of year on the course, especially during the canyons races and then during training camp, that like many people walk away with poison oak. So did you walk
Did you
away with
get
any
any?
poison oak? Oh, yeah.
You did? Where
I
is
got a
it?
lot on
Or
my
do you not want to share?
thigh. I think it was day 2. So I think along the
Okay.
Cal Street section because I have no poison oak below my knees because I was wearing calf sleeves and like
Oh.
compression socks that day.
Okay.
But it's all on my right leg only. So I think it was on the right side of the trail,
Yeah.
above my knee and like kind of like mid thigh. I've got
Okay.
several.
Okay. I wonder if Emily got some because I lent her some long tights, and I hope they
She said
maybe
she has
one
one
spot.
spot, which is really nothing. Like I think I've probably got
Yeah.
about 15. So
Okay. I have the tiniest little spot on my outer lower leg, and it's like basically gone now. But yeah, I
mm,
wore long tights on the second day and on the last day, and I'm glad that I did because I feel like it protected me. That
yeah.
plus Technu plus the dish soap that we
Hmm.
brought into the shower with us.
Genius.
Yeah.
What were your takeaways from camp from that being like your first experience?
Yeah. Well, so actually I've run those trails with Tyler. I think in 2019 he did his own training camp, not during the weekend of the training camp. So we called
Mhm.
it kind of our own Western States training camp. And then we did that again in 2021, and we went to the real training camp in 2022, but I was pregnant, so I would
Mm.
just drive Tyler, and then I did get to run some of the sections. Like I ran from Robinson Flat probably 6 miles out and then just back to Robinson Flat, and it was so fun to run that section again and just reminisce on the different times that I've been there. Our very first time at Western States in 2019, crewing Tyler, just having signed our first pro contract with
Oh,
Nike. And then in 2022, getting to run that, being pregnant with Lou. I feel like um, every time I run those trails, I'm reminded of those memories. And I feel like we laid down some other really great memories that will be awesome sources of joy, and um, I think we'll be able to draw on that as strength during the race. So yeah, I was telling everyone that weekend, I feel like that training camp, of course, there's a good fitness boost that comes with running higher mileage on the trail, but also it was just as much about making good memories that you can draw on and kind of visualizing what it's going to be like and feel like on race day.
totally. And I will say, I think the first time I really made the association of this, like making positive memories on a course, and bringing those back for your race day, was from Tyler actually a few years ago
Oh,
when I bumped into him on the Western States course, or maybe it was like a few days before Western States. I was like, Tyler, like you've nailed it every time you've run Western States. Like, what's something that like you want to give a rookie? And he told me exactly that is to like make those good memories. And I think we did that. I think something that was really special for the weekend was our little home base that we had in Michigan Bluff. So Mike and I
shout out
have
Jer. I love you,
shout out
Jer.
Jer. Mike and I have this really great friend, Jeremiah and Dana, who Mike met back in the San Diego 100 miler, 50 miler, probably back in 2012, 2013. And they have a home in Michigan Bluff, and they opened their doors to not just me and Mike, not just me, Mike, Rachel, and Tyler, but a whole group of us, of about like 8 of us that weekend, and housed us and like helped us have just such great memories along the course. And it was amazing. And we couldn't have had the weekend we had without them. So I think it's just really special to even associate our community and such positive memories with our little Michigan Bluff home, even though it's going to make it really, really hard to run past there on race day. Uh, I think
I
we'll
was
feel
thinking
like
that
a
too.
nice little swoon when we go by, though.
Definitely. And I think it just nicely encapsulates the reason why we got into the sport in the first place is just enjoying the trails and spending time with such wonderful people. And I feel like we really dove into that. Something that was really nice for Tyler and I was just having so many people to love on Lewis throughout the weekend, which is just not something we take for granted.
All right, you guys, let's talk about shoes. I've been running in our Terex trail shoes for the past 5 years, and I absolutely love them. I've put them through their paces at everything from mountainous 100 milers to fast California trails. Arc'teryx recently launched the brand new Sylan, which is also officially your new best friend on both long and short days on the trails. It's built with a Vibram outsole that's 30% lighter than traditional Vibram. It's got amazing cushion underfoot and an exaggerated rocker that propels you forward. I personally really love feeling faster than I am. It's kind of the best. It also has an anti-debris knit collar to keep all that dirt out of your shoes and on the trails. As I ramp up my training mileage in the next few months before my first 200-mile race in August, the shoes I wear in training and in my race are the most important thing for me to dial in. The Sylan shoes are those shoes for me, and I think you should try them too. Head to Arc'teryx.com to learn more about the new Sylan shoes. We would like to thank Arc'teryx for sponsoring this episode, and we will now get back to the show.
Yeah, Rach, if you want to talk a little bit about that, because I mean, Mike and I were privy to seeing you and Tyler parent out in Chamonix this past summer when we got to share a house with you guys in the build up to UTMB and OCC. But I mean, just watching you guys juggle parenting with training camp, like you're both training for 100 miles right now, you're both parenting your 1.5-year-old. It was a sight to be seen. You guys like juggled it amazingly, but I also think like you mentioned, you leaned on people throughout the weekend as well. So like talk about that from like a parenting perspective and like professional athlete perspective as well. Like what it takes to have the weekend that you both did and like what that looked like for both of you.
Yeah. Logistically, it was really challenging because normally we'll try to stagger our long runs so we're not doing them on the same day, and we kind of tried to do that. So basically, Tyler did essentially the training camp, but he just did everything one day sooner. So we got there earlier on Friday, and Tyler did a long run in the canyons, pretty similar to the first day of the training camp. And he had just come off a strength session. And so it was probably not optimal for him to have that big verti day right after his strength session, but he did it anyways. And then the second day, I did the big Robinson Flat to Forest Hill day. And Tyler ran, I think, from Michigan Bluff to the river. And Tyler was just waiting for a long time for us to get done with that. And it was really sweet. He was just going out to there was an aid station at Michigan Bluff, and Lewis made friends with everyone at that aid station. I brought him out there later after when I was watching Lewis and the aid station captain Scott. Him and Lou were just buds. It was like I felt like I was encroaching on something, and it was really fun to just be a part of that. And then also Kim and Topher Gaylord, they told Tyler, they were like, hey, just go start your run because Lewis was sleeping. They're like, we'll get him up from his nap unless you think he's going to be freaked out by us. And so I get back to the house and it was so adorable. Topher was sitting on the couch with Lewis. Lewis still had his sleeper on. He was reading him a book and giving him his milk. And I was just like, this, it takes a village. And it was just the perfect scene for that saying. Like, um, yeah, I just felt so supported by our community. And, it's not without its points of friction. I feel like there were a few times where I got done running and I just felt tapped out and like I didn't want to go straight into full on parenting and vice same thing for Tyler. Like he got done running and I had been watching Lewis all day. And so I was like, can you just put him to bed? Can you change the diaper? I'm kind of tapped out. And he's like, well, I just ran 25 miles in the heat. Like,
You're like,
so
so
I
did
guess it
I.
wasn't hot, but I just ran 25 miles. I'm tired too. So it's not totally perfect, but we do our best. And it honestly, like, having him around really enhances the experience. I feel like it brings us even closer to our community. So I love it. I wouldn't change it for anything.
No. Well, it was really admirable to watch because it's no easy feat. And I think that was evident just sharing a few days with you guys and just to see you guys nail amazing long runs. So I think on the last day, you guys had to get out of town. Your flight was at 2 p.m. And
Yeah.
the run on day 3, I think it's a nice, like, later start. And we
Mhm.
meet at Placer High at 8:30. I think 8:30 in the morning, and then we start the run around 9:30 from Green Gate. But you guys had to get an earlier start that day.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would have loved to get to run with you that day, but I got I got like nice notices on Strava afterwards about like the run that you had on day 3, and I just want to hear a little bit about how this played out because initially how I learned about your day 3 run was going on Strava and seeing like all the crowns that you had. But then I saw Esther and Ida's runs that said something along the lines of Rachel forgot to tell us that she was doing a workout today. And I want to hear about that run because I would have loved to be a fly on the wall because it sounded so enjoyable.
Okay, so to be fair, I talked to Esther a long time ago because we became friends in Hong Kong. Like the first day we met in Hong Kong, I think we hung out every single day since then. Like I would tell Tyler, "Hey, I'm gonna take the bus and go meet my friend for a run." Like, so Esther and I got super close, and then we were kind of scheming a way that we could hang out at training camp. And I told her I was going to run the last day early, and she wanted to do that too. And I said a long time ago, I said I think I'm going to just try to run it a little bit faster. But then on the day, so we picked her and Ida up, and another one of her friends. I'm forgetting his name now, but and I just like kind of forgot because it didn't feel like a workout. Like Tyler told me it in the end it was. I'm not sandbagging and saying like it was easy, but Tyler said just run the first 5 miles basically like to Auburn Lakes Trailhead. Just run easy like you normally would, and then just go for fast, fun vibes. And so I was like, I like that. It's not like a certain pace. It doesn't mean anything. It's just like fast, fun vibes. So that was kind of what I went for. And I didn't say anything. I should have said like, hey, I'm going to run the first 5 super easy. And then I'm going to pick it up. I don't know what that means exactly, but like I will intentionally pick it up after that because I want to feel that kind of mojo at that point in the race. Like I'm starting to run faster now. And so we were like sending it. And I feel like I would be annoyed if I was them. They were super cool about it. But like we got to the finish and I was like hanging out, having a Topo Chico with Katie Asmith, our podcast co-host, and Craig Thornley, the Western States race director. And Esther was just like, you didn't tell us you had to work out. But they were so kind. But yeah, I did kind of I let myself go a little bit and it was fun.
I like the strategies around that though, because I think it's really nice to feel that flow prior to race day on those race sections. So I can relate only a little bit because I ran way too cool last year on
Yeah.
a lot of the similar trails in that last little bit. And it's really nice in the race to reflect on that mojo that I had during way too cool of just really cruising on those trails. Because
Mhm.
if you feel good, those trails are so nice and lovely to run on, and you can really move, especially if you're in the daylight. And ideally, if you're feeling good in that last section, you can really roll on those trails. They're extremely cruisy, and ideally, you're doing a lot of it or some portion of it in the daylight. I think the last couple years, I've run about like 5 to 10 miles of the last 20 in the daylight. So I think those are great trails to have that mojo on, experience it at some point prior to the race, so you can really have that in your mind come race day.
So, speaking from experience, Leah, how do you get to that last 20 miles being able to actually run?
Ugh. I was joking with somebody the other day when they were like, "Oh, how did everybody like look at camp? Like, how are you feeling?" And I was just saying, like, there was everybody that I
Looked
ran
so
with
good.
looks so good. And somebody mentioned like Ida and Esther, and I was like, I'm not even in the conversation with Ida and Esther. All I can teach them is how to be in 10th place at the river, because for the last 2 years I've moved right into 10th place at the river, and then kind of like moved my way up a little bit from there to the finish. But
Seems ideal.
it's ideal if you want to be somewhere in the 5 to 10th position. I think if you want to be in the top 5, or in a podium position, you definitely need to be a little higher at the river. But what I will say, just from my past 2 experiences and then reflecting on like what the weather could potentially be this year, I think where you see a lot of the carnage in the race, especially in the back half of the 5 through 10 positions, is in that last 20 miles. So if you've run a conservative first half of the race, you can feel extremely well that last 4 hours. Like the goal I've set for myself the last 2 years has been to do from the river to the finish in 4 hours. And I think I've done it in an almost identical time both times.
Mm.
So I think as I'm coming into the race this year, I know what I can do for that last 4 hours of the race. It's just, let's get yourself in a position that's a little higher than you've been historically to do that last section in 4 hours. But
Yeah.
yeah, lots of pieces at play for sure.
Yeah. I imagine you're probably sick of being compared to Tyler, but I feel like you this year are kind of maybe a little bit like Tyler last year, where you know that you can place in the top 10, even the top 5, running this race really conservatively. And I'm wondering if you're wondering what it might be like to throw caution to the wind and see what happens a
I
little
am
bit.
wondering.
I'm
No, it's
curious
not. It's
for
something
you.
I've put a lot of thought into. And like, I think going into the race last year, when I was interviewed for things, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to put myself in it more. And like, actually, for me, I did, which meant like being, in the top 10 a little earlier, or maybe like the top 15 earlier than I would be normally. And I think this year, I'm telling myself, like, Leah, you need to be in a place of like competition at the river.
Mhm.
And for me, like, I'm kind of sick of being in that 10th place spot at the river. Yeah, this is actually funny because one of the nights at camp, we decided to pull up last year's live stream to see if we could catch glimpses of me and Tyler. And we got some good glimpses of Tyler, but I'm always historically in this really unfortunate spot in the live stream where I'm always moving into the coverage like really late in the race. So we like finally found me about to cross the river, and at that exact point in time the camera cut to the other boat crossing the river that did not have me in it, and it had like Meg Morgan and Priscilla, and I was like, shoot, there's my
Should've gotten
moment.
that boat. Get
Yeah.
some TV time. We saw your elbow though.
Yeah, it was a cute elbow. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking about Western states in a little bit more of a competitive, not that I haven't thought of it in a competitive sense in recent years, but one that I want to stick my nose in it a little bit more. I think Tyler was a huge inspiration for me last year, seeing what he was able to put together and
Mhm.
do, and just like trust in his training, trust in himself. I think Jeff Colt too, watching
Yeah.
how he trained last year and raced the race, I think I compare myself to him a good bit too. And I sat next to him on the bus. On the way to day 3 of camp. And I was just asking him questions like, Jeff, what gave you the confidence to run in like 3rd and 4th place for as long as you did in that race? And it was so cool hearing his responses, bouncing ideas off of him, like having him give me the confidence to do the same thing was
Yeah.
really neat. And I think sometimes I just need to hear that from people who I emulate in the sport, but also consider myself kind of similar to in a competitive standpoint.
Mhm. And I feel like it's kind of important to mention too that putting yourself in there, it doesn't mean like neglecting taking care of yourself or doing all the things that you're very good at. Like you're still eating a lot, you're still cooling, you're managing issues as they arise. You know that you can do that. And I feel like that was something I told Tyler going into last year. It's like, you're good at taking care of yourself and taking care of small issues before they become big ones, but it's still a little bit scary to fray from what has worked so well, but it can pay off big time. And I think
It-
also something that I think about with all this is like, we don't have unlimited race opportunities. Like you all are so lucky to have had multiple Western states, but not everyone gets that. And like for me personally, I think I'm thinking about my career in medicine and being a mother, and all of those things are things that can take me away from competition. And I think ever since having Lewis, I've been more competitive in race situations because I've been out and I know what it feels like to be out. And I know that these opportunities are not free and they're not guaranteed. So I think that's kind of a cool, it's like a cool way to have to go into a big race like that with a little bit of a scarcity mindset that this could be taken from you at any moment, whether it's injury or getting pregnant or something else.
It's so true. And it's like taking full advantage of the opportunity when it's right in front of you and getting the most out of it. Something
Mhm.
that Mike was trying to tempt me with in the last 6 miles last year to get me to finish faster. Because I told him that was my last Western States last year. He's like, Leah, this is the last time you'll have to do this. And I think I was like, Mike,
Mm.
I don't care. And I just got complacent and I got lazy. And then
Mm.
I ended up being like, okay, yeah, I'll do Western States again. But it's like, that's a privileged place to be in that, like, getting that top 10 is a return spot. And like, you can try it again. And yeah, it's like this
Mhm.
time I know what I can do, but it's like, let's push the envelope a little bit and take advantage of what will truly be my last Western States. I pinky promise.
You can do whatever you want. But
Yeah, that's true.
Tyler said that like every year as well. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, it's fun. I like going to Western States, whether
Who
it's
doesn't?
getting to run it or getting to crew for someone. It's great. Yeah.
Before we go, Rach, what was your biggest takeaway and what are you looking forward to the most for Western States, which is in, oh gosh, 25 days.
Whoa. Biggest takeaway, I mean, we already talked about this, but just the importance of sprinkling good memories along the trail, and also like we were talking about with kind of running each section the way that I wanted to run it on race day. So being relaxed and getting to Forest Hill feeling like that was the easiest 100K of my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds kind of ridiculous, but if I can get to Forest Hill feeling good, kind of like we did on day one, and being able to really run that last bit a little bit faster each section, I think that was like a good takeaway for having it be a little bit of a dry run for race day. And of course, community. I mean, our trail running community is so incredible. I mean, the help with Lewis, the sharing meals, Jeremiah and Dana's generosity, Topher and Kim, Scott, the aid station captain, Craig Thornley. I love that man. Like he is so down to earth. I mean, gosh, my heart is just like bursting with gratitude for that whole community. The other really cool thing about Western States is it is a premier competitive, very like class, what's the word, like a class act. Like it is an incredible premier event, but it also retains that like kind of classic American old-timey ultra vibe, which I think is really rare. It's almost like the opposite of UTMB, where it feels very flashy, and so I just kind of love that we have the opportunity to participate in an event like that.
I think that's so well said, and I couldn't agree more with every sentiment. It's so special, and I want everybody to experience it. I know it's getting increasingly more difficult for everybody to experience it due to the lottery odds and all of that, but it's hard to describe.
And you don't have to get in the race to experience it. Like, go to training camp, go run the trails even by yourself, and go volunteer. We actually have, this is so cool. So many of Tyler's high school athletes are driving down to Western States. One of his athletes, him and his mom, will be volunteering at Duncan Canyon. And
That's
that, yeah, it's
amazing.
like, it's really cool. I think they've followed the race enough and they're really inspired and they want to experience it. So, yeah, one of his athletes might even pace him a little bit. So, just come and hang out. I know it's hard to get into, but I'll report back after I run the race. But sometimes I say that crewing and pacing is actually more fun than running the race. So come
I think so.
hang. Yeah. Well, Leah, I will see you really soon. Leah and I are about to go for a run. So,
I'm so excited. I will see you in a few minutes. And until next time, to our amazing listeners, thanks for listening. Please subscribe, listen wherever you get your podcasts. We love feedback. We love hearing from you. And we love connecting with you on the trails. We got a few shout outs during Western States training camp. And I don't think anything brought me and Rachel more joy than hearing some people tell us that they love the podcast. So keep it coming. We love you guys.